So what we're going to talk about today is the organization chart inside of TouchStone and how to technically use the organization chart, but then also a bit about strategically how to build an organization chart and how to use that chart as a strategy tool. So to get to the organization chart, super simple, you just click the button right here above. The organization chart inside of TouchStone defines the positions or the people in your business. So over here on the 4 functions like we talked about last week, that's where you keep a list of all of your processes. And those lists are organized by subject area, typically, so by sub-functions. So you're not really thinking about people or who does what over here. You're more thinking about just the process itself and what category it falls into. When you get to the next, to the piece of building your organization chart, here's where you want to start to think of the people or the positions in your business. If you look at this chart, just this example chart, you'll notice that it's departmental, which is a good way to build an organization chart, but it also kind of overlays or corresponds to the 4 functions. So here we've got this guiding, getting, doing, running. If you look at the organization chart, you can see where this kind of lays over the chart. So here's getting right here, the getting the business department, sales and marketing, doing right here, delivering the products or services, and running, administration, finance. Then the guiding the business is kind of this whole area here. So board of directors, president, strategic area, and then also managers. So when you look at the chart this way, you can start to think, or maybe you can see where the processes in each of the 4 functions are probably used according to the organization chart. So let's talk about how to use the chart, and it's really easy. There are 2 views with the chart. We're in tree view right now. If I hit simple view right here, then I'm going to see the chart as an outline. For those of you who have large organization charts, this is a good way to look at it. If I'm in an account and I see tree view and I see the chart kind of extend past my view screen and I've got a pretty big monitor, I'll go directly to simple view because it's just easier for me to see it this way. So tree view, simple view. If you want to add a box to the chart, it's this little plus sign right here, add position. So if I hit this plus sign, it's going to ask me for the name of the position. It's a position title, a title for that role. It should never be a person's name. If you want to put their name next to the title, you can, and there's different ways of doing that in TouchStone, but if you really want that, then you can put their name in the title, but always make it a position title. Then I'd hit this drop down, and TouchStone's asking here, where does this box go, basically? And the chart's kind of built from the bottom up, so you say, which box does this new position go under? So if I choose a position here from the chart, then I hit save, and now this new box is right here. So when you add these positions, you're always going to be adding it underneath another position. You can take positions and drag them around the chart just by holding down your mouse click, and then you put them on top of the box you want them to go under. You see how it's turning green? Wait for it to turn green and then let go, and then it'll drop this position right here under this box. So I can move positions, all over the chart this way. I can move it even under board of directors at the highest, and then the name, this box is over here. I can also move entire trees around. So if I take this lead sales position and I drag it under marketing assistant, it's going to put the whole tree under there. So you can drag from the bottom over, or you drag the position above and then move it, and the whole tree goes along with it. Deleting positions is this little X box next to the plus. I hit this one. It's going to give me a drop down of all the positions that are available to delete. That's what this little note says. TouchStone's not going to let you delete a position that has positions underneath it. So if we close out of this for a minute, this position called junior technician, I can't delete this one because it's got a box underneath it. So if I really wanted to delete this, I'd have to take this box away and move it somewhere else temporarily. And now that this is at the bottom, it's available to delete. So when you go to the delete position, you're only going to see boxes that are at the bottom of the chart available to delete. So I hit this drop down, choose the position I want to delete, and then I hit delete. An important thing to remember about deleting positions from the chart is if you've built the job description for that position. So this is what a job description looks like, and a job description is just simply the processes from over here on the 4 functions list that have been linked to this position. So if I delete this marketing assistant, then this job description would be gone. These processes aren't gone because they live over here and they've just been linked to this position. But the job description itself would be gone. So remember that when you're deleting positions. Printing the chart, you can use this little printer icon, and it's going to pop open a box like this, and then I can adjust and print by department. It's kind of clunky the way that the print works. We're going to have some new features released in the organization chart, and I'm hoping that some of the print features will kind of be settled by then. The issue we're running into is just the screen size of different computers, the zooming in and out, and the kind of degradation that happens when you make the chart smaller. So there are like technical issues to printing charts like this from web tools, and that's the reason that the print function currently is the way that it is. So if I do want to print this, I would just hit that printer icon and then click print this page up here, and then I'm going to get this printed on 8.5 by 11. If you've got inside your local printer settings a way to print on larger paper, I can spread this out a little bit here, and then I get a bigger printer view area. But when I hit print this page, it's opening up my local printer settings here. So things related to how it's going to print, landscape, things like that have to be adjusted through your local printer settings. My preferable way of printing is to use a snipping tool. So I have this cool tool that I love, and those of you who know me probably heard me talk about it. It's this little sun right here, and it's called Jing. So Jing is a free tool. It's by the makers of Snagit, but it's the free version of Snagit. So you can download it for free. If I hit this little capture button, I can go here and make a picture of my chart, and then let go, and then I take the picture, and now I've got my chart, and now it's in Jing, and you can open it up in Word, or not Word, but in Microsoft Paint or Adobe, anything that you have that allows you to mess around with it a little bit. But here in Jing, it's saving it like in this big picture view. It also keeps the color, the blue box color. So here I can save it, and then also inside of Jing I can do little cool things like make arrows, and I can highlight something if I want to. I can put in text right here, which is nice. So this is just a way of printing your organization chart through a tool like Jing, but this is also, and I'll bring it up again when we're in the process tools section, but this is a great way of taking screenshots, because you can save this screenshot as a JPEG or a GIF file, and then you can upload it to a task inside of a work plan or anywhere else in the process tools. Jing also has this little screen capture setting. So if I hit Jing again, or video setting, so I let go here, and then I hit the little capture video, and then it's giving me a countdown. And then if you have voice over internet with speakers, you can be speaking into your computer, and you can say, open the software here, click here, go here. So you're giving like a visual training of a procedure or whatever you're trying to demonstrate. And then when you're done, you just hit finish, and then Jing will give you the video that you can upload to TouchStone in the video area. Or also you can do a screencast down here, and it gives you a link that you can make like a link to an uploaded file. I mean, a link like a hyperlink to that screencast. In the free version of Jing, you get 5-minute video recording, which is, for training videos, 5 minutes is good. It's a good amount of time to kind of keep someone's attention and showing them how something's done. You can move the chart around pretty easy just by clicking in the white space, and then I can drag this around. So if my chart's long, I can pull it this way or up and down. When you're in simple view, it does the same thing. As long as you grab it in the white space here, you can move this around. This zoom feature is not my favorite. I mean, it does zoom in and out like this, but when you get real small, you can see you can't really see it all that well. So if you want to zoom in and out, you can definitely do this. You can also use your browser to zoom just by hitting the plus sign and enter, and it makes it bigger or smaller. To change the name of a position, so if I have a position on my chart and I want to edit the title of it, I just select it right here, and now I'm taken to the job description. And here it's just click to edit. So I click this open, and then I can change the position title, hit save, and it changes. So functionally, that's how the organization chart works. Pretty easy. You're going to see the org chart in simple view in other areas of TouchStone. So for example, up here in account administration, if I go to a user right here and I go to assign them access to TouchStone, I see the organization chart. So this is just an important thing, to kind of remember about how TouchStone's organized. In account administration, when you're giving a user and an employee access to TouchStone, you're literally choosing the boxes on the chart, the positions that they're going to have access to, which gives them access to all the processes that are on that job description. So that's how the access levels work. And you can give different types of access. So when we were talking earlier about putting names in the boxes, well, this is how TouchStone assigns a person to a position. You can put names in boxes if you want, but here is where you can do it where it actually is usable inside of TouchStone. So John, for example, here has access to all these positions. So maybe he's the manager of marketing and sales, but then he has access to these positions because those are his employees. So when John logs in, he doesn't need to see his name in the box there, because when he logs in, he sees that he has access to these positions. And on the home screen here, he's going to see a control panel for those positions. So behind the scenes, TouchStone's kind of showing or giving the employees access, and they know which positions they fill. Okay, so let's talk about technically or strategically how to use the chart. So when you're building your organization chart, or if you've already built it and you just want to kind of re-examine it, which is a good thing to do every year when you're building you're doing your budget, your strategic plan for the year, it's a good idea to look at your organization chart and make changes to that. A good thing to do first is to develop, if you don't have a vision or a plan for the year, then think about that first. So over here in the 4 key functions and guiding the business, there's a tool in the library for building a strategic target, we call it, or a strategic vision. So if you don't have that, then this is maybe a good time to think about it. And it doesn't have to be some big, long, fancy business plan. It's just really a one-page document that kind of lays out the goals for your business over the next year. And if you want to get even more elaborate than that, you could do it for 2 years maybe. So think, where do you want your business to be in 2 years? And focus on some basic concepts like what is sales going to be? What are my expenses going to be? What are expenditures that need to be made? What is the advertising budget going to be? So things like that, which kind of help you then decide what the steps you need to take that year are. So if you have a vision already, or if you create one, you want to then use those goals to help shape the organization chart, to help you construct what it's going to look like. So think about the business in the future. Somewhere between 2 and 3 years out is good. If you just want to do a year, that's fine. But I think somewhere between 2 and 3 years is good for organization strategy. So look forward to those 2 years and ask yourself, what are sales going to be? What are my revenues going to be? That, in a sense, tells you the size of your chart. Now, every industry is different, and the positions are all different, but you should know your industries well enough to be able to think to yourself, if I'm going to be making 10 million in sales, then these are the positions that I would need, or the number of positions I would need. So with that in mind, start to build the organization structure. So here are some key concepts. Number one, keep this box up here. So speaking kind of from the top down, The entrepreneurs or the owners of the company are here, formally called the board of directors. But really all the board of directors means is these are the owners of the company, and then sometimes the advisors of the owners. So if you want to change the title of that to owners or whatever you want it to be, shareholders, that's fine. But keep this box here because this is you, if you're a business owner on the line now, this is you as the entrepreneur. This is you as the owner of the company. You have a much different agenda or vision up here as the owner than you would when you fill any of these other technical roles. So what you care about here, what you should care about is the return on your investment, the maximizing the asset that you're owning, which is this business. Underneath board of directors, there should be some kind of general manager, CEO, president position. So the president takes direction from the board of directors or the owners. In a lot of small businesses, this is the same person. But still, the different hats you wear in these two different positions is important to realize. So that's one of the benefits of this future chart. Ideally, if this is your plan, you would sit on the board, and all these other positions you would hire out. So the board gives direction to the president. The president then implements the strategy of the business or gives directions to the key departments below. So starting kind of from left to right here, this is the sales and marketing department. One thing I want you to notice is that every department has a manager. Not a unusual or brilliant concept, but I'm pointing it out because each department, in order to fully function efficiently, needs some managerial presence. It just has to. You have to have a manager within that department, and ideally that person is working full-time as a manager, managing the processes and managing the people doing the work, developing the strategy, developing the processes for efficiency, working on that department. So ideally that would be a full-time position. Well, a lot of you who are smaller businesses may not have the luxury of that at the current place that you are, but again, this is a future chart. This is where you're going. So have a position that is on top of each of these departments. Then think of the key positions underneath. So in a sales and marketing department, you've got two basic things that happen. One, leads are generated, and two, they're converted. So those two main things that happen in the sales and marketing department should be listed out over here on your 4 functions. So you should have a sub-function called advertising or lead generation or whatever you want to call it, and then a list of the processes that you need to have in order to generate leads. Then you've got your sales processes. All those leads are coming in, and then you've got people who convert those leads. There are other things that go on, like maybe marketing assistant who does like paperwork or makes calls or does all the social media or does all the print advertising. You may have like a technical position like that. But basically, you have these advertising needs that happen in this department and then the sales. So how you can think about this a little bit more strategically is you can think to yourself, well, we're at 5 million now. We want to grow to 10 in 5 years. So in order to grow to 10, we're going to need to increase leads by a certain amount, and then they need to get converted by 50%, and then we're profitable. So start to throw some numbers around like that and think to yourself, what is the amount of leads that need to be generated? What should our advertising budget be? That's another way to say it. How much money are we going to have to be spending in order to grow? A lot of businesses are formulated and created based on word of mouth and referral, and it kind of gives this elusive sense of success almost because you've got leads coming in just naturally through word of mouth and referral. But what becomes hard is getting your business to the next level because you need to have proactive ways of generating leads, and you need to have consistent, predictable ways of converting those leads. So everything that I'm saying is all about process, really. Processes for advertising, processes for converting. But here for the organization chart idea, you just want to think what are the positions that we need for each of those functions. On to operations. If you've got all these leads and sales coming in from this department, the next important thing is to decide what positions do you need and what is the structure for fulfilling those sales. So operations is all about fulfilling what you've sold. Doesn't matter what you're selling. Even if you sell and outsource to someone else that distributes, you still need to make sure that your customers are getting what they bought. So the operations department is paramount because you could have all the sales in the world, and if you're not delivering upon those services or products in the way that you promised, the business is going to fail. So think about the operations and the structure. So imagine the business at $10 million. Imagine all those leads coming in, all those leads being converted. What does this department need to look like structurally to support all of those new sales? And this might sound like an obvious question, but when you think about growing, doubling in size, it becomes a really important question to have the detailed answers to. So there's a couple strategies within an operations department that I've seen be successful. One of the issues in operations is that you have to train and have service people, whether they're delivering a service or producing a product, to actually do the work, right? So when you start to scale the business, if you don't have those people in place fully trained, then you don't have the infrastructure to be able to support all the sales. So one idea is having levels like you're seeing here. So this is entry level. So theoretically, I hire people at this level. There may be some minimum qualifications that they have to have. There may be some significant minimum qualifications that they have to have, depending on the industry that you're in. And then you've got a lead level, or journeyman, it's called in the trades. So it's kind of like you've graduated from entry level and now you are a lead. And then you've got the manager. Here's another terminology for it: entry level, junior, senior. So the words don't matter, but the idea is that you have one position coming in at the bottom that you can hire, and you know there's a pool of those people. You know that you can recruit and advertise for those people and get them. Then you train them up in your processes at this level, and then they move here, and then they move here. So you've got a plan for growth, first of all, because I should know if I hire someone in here and it takes them 6 months to get here based on the training I have in place, then I can times that by the amount of money that I pay them plus management, and then I can basically know how much it's going to cost me to get an entry-level position up until, well, they're fully functioning. So this is what kind of makes successful scalability. You have to grow your own talent from within. So processes help in that. The org chart helps you with the basic concept of it, but the processes themselves are paramount. Because if I've got fully documented processes for the entry-level position, and I put time next to that, training time, and I added up all the money, and I know what that magic amount is, then that gives me power. Because I know every time I'm going to get more sales over here and I've got to add someone, it's going to take 6 months to move them up, and it's going to cost me $10,000, so I better have the money, and I better start hiring now. It's way better than this kind of chaotic thing that goes on with a lot of small businesses where you're just like overwhelmed, everyone's overwhelmed, you're doing all the work, you've got one great guy that does most of it. When he's not there, everything goes wrong. When you don't know what you're going to do when those sales come in, you're trying to find subcontractors, it's just this chaos. Then maybe you do find a good person, you bring them in, and you're like, oh, do the entry-level stuff, but then, oh, we need help in the warehouse. And suddenly you've got a new employee who's spread all over the place and unsuccessful at everything because they're not directed to the main things. So this is about, hiring plan, growing your own talent from within. One of the fallacies that I see a lot with growing businesses is that you think that you're always going to be able to hire this guy right here, the senior guy. If I can just go out and find 10 people like this, well then that would be perfect. The fallacy continues, I think, because sometimes you do find a good person. They come from a competition or you just get lucky and you're like, now you're dependent upon that person and it's not replicatable, it's not scalable. We throw around this word scalable a lot, but it really is a powerful word. Can you replicate that is basically what it's saying. Can you escalate it? Well, you can't escalate luck, really. You can hope for it, but you can't make it happen. But what you can make happen is having a training plan and hiring these people and then moving them up. So think about the different levels or positions that you would have. Try to determine the amount of those positions that you would need to fulfill what's happening over here. So to grow to the 10 million, what's that going to look like? With the org chart in TouchStone, if you have multiple positions like this one, like there's 4 here, you don't need to have 4 boxes that are the same position. Just put the number 4 there. If you put 4 boxes, then suddenly you're replicating that same position 4 times, and it's going to look confusing inside of TouchStone because it's just the same. The job description will be the same. There's just 4 of them. If you've got a situation where you've got regions or you've got wholly owned locations in different places, if the positions are the same, even though they're in different regions, if the work is the same, then you don't really need on the chart to define those regions. You just put in what we would call a prototype, which is maybe just these 3 positions or something like that, and you just know that you've got that replicated 5 times across the United States. If they're doing different work, so if you've got one in California and then you've got one in New York, and the service manager in each of those locations does different work, we'll then create separate boxes and just have, label California, label New York. In a successful operations department, the number one thing that you want to ensure is that it's profitable. Again, a simple concept, but quite complicated when you're trying to implement it in a complicated business. Profitability is key, and this kind of structuring of positions and thinking through training and thinking through efficiency is really important, because when the chaos starts to happen, you lose sight of profitability. So I'll give you a quick example. This whole department here, in most businesses, I'm sure I could be challenged on this, but in most businesses, this operations department is dealing with variable expenses. So these are expenses, cost of goods sold, another way you heard of it. Variable cost is anything that varies with sales. So the more sales I have, the more of that expense I have. Commissions is kind of the same way over in this department. So if I have salespeople here that are selling 1 or 2 products, there's a commission. If I pay commissions, there's a commission on that, which is a variable cost. The more products I sell, the more money I'm going to have to pay these people. Well, operations is that way for labor for a lot of businesses, service for a lot of businesses, materials, any kind of technology that you use that's tied to sales. So again, how much you sell of that dictates the expense of it. So if I have a guy here that is not working efficiently because I've not trained him or he doesn't have the experience, if these people sell something based on a 50% gross profit, let's just say that for round numbers, and this guy takes twice the time to do it because he's inexperienced, and now he's actually done it for 75% gross profit, suddenly I'm losing money, right? So this is, again, a simple way to put it, because sometimes people get the simple parts. But when you layer and layer and layer upon this, it gets more and more complicated. So again, I'm just trying to point out the value of structuring these positions so that you know, and you can plan for the fact that this person here, it might take him 75% of the variable cost to deliver the product or service. But once he gets here, he has to be doing it based on what's being sold over here. This is something that causes this effect where you think to yourself, man, we've had the best sales year ever. There's so many sales. It's so great. I feel so good. And then suddenly you look at your quarterly P&L and you're like, where's all the money? Like, we didn't make any money. Why? Well, 9 times out of 10, it has to do with this. It's costing you more to deliver that product or service than what you sold it for, and it's because of the variable costs. Over here, last department in the row, typically called admin finance. Some people refer to this as the overhead department. These are the services, you might say, that make the rest of the company successful. So this department gets a bad rap some of the time, and I think it's unfortunate because the truth of the matter is this department makes the rest of the company efficient and profitable. So key positions within this department are going to be administrative things, reception, HR, IT, computer processes, and most importantly, bookkeeping. Payables, receivables, inventory control, the controller, depending on how big your business is, HR manager. All of these are the support services for the rest of the company. To the degree that all of this isn't happening is to the very degree that the rest of these people cannot do what they need to do and don't have the information that they need to do it. So a simple example again, if you don't have bookkeeping procedures in place where by the 5th of the month, end of the month, you know what happened the prior month. Everybody's got their reports, they've got their job costing, they've got their sales reports, their leads generated, all those reports. Then these people are just kind of shooting in the dark. They don't know what they're doing. They just keep going forward. There's no hope to manage cost of goods sold or variable costs or decide if this guy's more efficient than this guy or if he's actually efficient at all. If you don't have the productivity reports, which then stem from, the adding up of that time basically in those materials, which is done by finance. So these processes that you would have to create results here and the people you would have here to create results feed the rest of the company. Even reception or basic administrative things. I mean, I can't even tell you how many times I've run into businesses, small and large, where these people are running around like doing administrative things that are just a waste of time. They should be on the phone selling. And instead, because there is no function over here, there's no support services, they're 50% of their time pushing papers around. Or simple IT processes. I mean, there's nothing that grinds a business to a halt more than computer problems. So all that can kind of be supported and foreseen and developed before it becomes a problem. Another key thing is HR, just basic human resource policy and procedure. We have just a slew of great processes in the library over here for HR and the running the business. So simple mistakes that are made in a business with a rogue employee or a policy problem or somebody violating basic HR rules, and then suddenly you've got worst case scenario, huge lawsuits that you have to deal with. Well, how can you be efficient and sell more and work strategically if you're fighting an ex-employee lawsuit that could have been fixed with an employee handbook? So simple things like that can happen here in HR if you've filled out this department. All right, so once you've built out your chart and it's a picture of the future, the next thing to do is to kind of marry it with the present situation. Because there's one thing that TouchStone, there's a lot of things that TouchStone does well, but there's one key thing it does well. And that is everything is usable now. We're not building crazy strategy things for the future that maybe we hope we'll use someday. It's a very practical tool. It's an everyday tool. It's a tool that helps you now and also helps you strategically grow. So the chart is just key for this. So you've spent this time thinking strategically into the future, thinking this is where my business is going, this is what it will look like at $10 million. You could even take the step of like adding up all of these salaries here and putting it into a budget, which we're going to talk about here in a minute. Add it all up and make sure this is profitable. So how you use it now would be to take people's names and put them into the boxes for what they're doing. So you've built this strategy chart for the future. You're not thinking about people or who's doing what now. You're really just thinking about the the future structure and how that makes the most sense. Then sit and start thinking to yourself, okay, who does what now? So start with yourself. If you're the chairman of the board and the president, maybe you're also the manager of marketing and sales, maybe you're also a salesperson sometimes. So your name is in all those boxes. And you can literally go to account administration here and give yourself a control panel for every single one of those boxes. And it'll look like this here on the home screen. So I have a control panel for the manager of marketing and sales and also the president. And if I fill 2 more roles on my future chart, then I'm going to put those there too. Now suddenly I've got, a list of these positions I'm responsible for. And more importantly, you've got, processes you're responsible for when you're wearing each of these hats. So think about who's doing what now. And put their names in the boxes for the positions they fill. So if you have 1 person or 2 people in your finance admin department, and you can make the same example if your business is much bigger and you've got 10 people in there. Fill in the names in the boxes for what that person does. Are they the bookkeeper and the receptionist and IT? Well, then they're all 3 of these roles. One thing to consider is if you have a position or a person that you've made the manager because you just needed someone to help you out in that role, say, but they're not really doing a great job, and probably due to no fault of their own, they're probably pulled down into all of this work when you really wanted them to do this, or maybe you never trained them in how to be a manager, or maybe they just are a bad manager and you just haven't been able to do anything about it. If you have situations like that, use this creation of the chart as an opportunity to kind of realign. So say to this person, this is our new future organization chart. As we grow, this is going to be a full-time position. We're going to document the procedures for that position as we grow. For now, you're going to be the lead salesperson, and I'm going to fill this role. And then again, as the business grows and we get ready to hire this position, you can apply for that job. Sometimes those are hard conversations, but it's better to have it because it's more practical. And I'll probably bet you that the person will be relieved if you kind of, give them an opportunity for an out. So think about those kinds of things. It may be that you can't do that for whatever reason, but if you can, then take it as an opportunity. Put your name in this box until you can get it designed to the point that you can really hire someone to be successful. Because there's nothing worse for any department when someone's been kind of promoted beyond their capabilities and they're just failing all over the place. The employees suffer, profitability suffers, that employee suffers. It's better to say, oops, I made a mistake and redo it. For any boxes that are future positions that you don't have the money or you're not the size to hire yet, then put your name in that box. Think about the technicians, if you're in a technical company, or service people that you have now, and really assign them to where you think they are based on their skills. If they're still entry level, then put them here. And then you can say, look, we have this great new strategic system. We're documenting procedures. We're getting trainings together. And we're going to start doing formal training to train you on the processes on your job description. And then you can move up here. One thing you want to be mindful of as well is employees you have that span the organization chart. So if you've got, a really great employee, his name's Bob. He does some sales. He's the service manager. He goes out on calls when you need him to, and he also fixes the computers. Those guys exist. There are people like that, I know, in your business. So if you've got someone like that, you may consider them to be your best employee. What's happened to them is you probably hired them for a certain position, and then they were just kind of, you needed things everywhere, and they were good at all that, and so suddenly, they're doing everything. Use this as an opportunity to kind of reassess that. So the first thing you can do is say, let's document the procedures for IT, or let's hire a subcontractor to deal with this. Now, Bob, your role is going to be the service manager. I don't want you going on service calls anymore. You can help out part-time in sales until we get another salesperson. So, but what's happening is you're using something concrete like the org chart and specific job accountabilities, and you're helping to kind of reorientate Bob to what you wanted him to do to begin with. It's going to be a relief because the multitasking and the chaos that goes on with a person that is pulled in that many directions is very stressful for them. And it's inefficient for your business. There are certain types of people and certain personality traits and certain qualifications which allow them to be successful in certain roles. Salespeople, for example, have certain qualities that IT people don't have or service people don't have. So when you take someone like that and you're stretching them into all these different results, like deal with customers, make the sale, deal with the technology, it's completely inefficient. It's like stopping and starting and stopping and starting. So think about roles or people that you have like that and then reassign them into different boxes. Also consider if you have two people in one box, that's really only one position. So I saw this the other day. There was two partners and they were both in this president box. And I understood why they were there. I mean, they put themselves both there because, they don't want the other one to be in charge of them. I mean, it's obvious. They had all kinds of reasons for it, but the bottom line is it's just not efficient. If they're both the president, then neither of them are the president. So one of them needed to say, I'm going to take this leadership role. I'm not going to boss the other guy around, but I'm going to take this leadership role and do this work, and then he's going to be the operations manager. And then we come together as the board of directors and we work on strategic things. So it's just a tactical shift, really, or a managerial shift. On a more departmental level, there may be, two people that are this. So you've got one guy that you kind of made halfway this manager, and then you're also doing it. Or customer service. This is really just one person's accountabilities, but I'm having 5 people do it because they all have time, so they're all going to fill in here. It's really inefficient. No one's really doing it well. They're all just kind of putting out fires. So take all your current position people and then put them into the boxes where assign them accountability to these different boxes. You can then kind of look ahead and do things like this. Put in future hire dates. So if you're the board of directors, the president, and the manager of operations, well, think to yourself, over the next 2 years as we start to implement this, our strategic plan, when do we want to hire in the operations manager? So you'd think quarters of a year. I mean, unless you really have it dialed in, guesstimate quarters of a year. Just say, by the end of this year, we're going to hire in this operations manager, and then put that hire date here. Then this gives you a hiring plan, first of all. It gives you some deadlines about getting these processes documented, everything for the manager of operations. And it helps you to kind of see how you're going to then balance the growth of the business. So there's alarming statistics out there that you've probably heard for years on how many small businesses fail within the first 5 years, and then how many never make a profit in the 10 years after that. I mean, it's mind-blowing. When I look at analyze businesses, and I have a huge years background in this, the number one thing that I see for how small businesses fail is they're unable to juggle basically these two departments. So they've got tons of sales coming in here, and then they have not enough people to deliver those sales. And that failure looks like a lot of different things. They run out of money, they get overextended on credit lines, they have huge job losses, so they're unable to balance sales with operations. And then the opposite can occur. You work really diligently to get this structure in place. You've got a good team. You've got good people going on, but then you don't have the sales. So then it flops in the other direction. You're putting out expenses week after week after week. You can't make payroll, and you got no sales coming in here. So this balancing of sales and operations is critical to scaling a business. A lot of small businesses get to a ceiling. And your version of that can look like any amount of revenue, but you get to a ceiling that you just can't get past. And you can't get past it either because you don't have the sales, or your operations just can't sustain it. The minute you put one more thing on this operations department, it's like it falls out the bottom. And then you put another thing on it, it falls out again. We call it holes in the bucket. So this organization strategy, process development in general helps with this, but this organization strategy can be a first step towards that. So the process of the week that I want to talk about is budgeting. And I want to talk about budgeting because it dovetails with the organization strategy and the org chart development. So if somebody asks me, what are the key things I need in my business to succeed? I would say, number one, you need a plan, simple plan. One or two bullet points, it doesn't matter, but you need some kind of plan. Number two, you need a good organization strategy. So a chart like this that represents the business as in the future. That org chart would ultimately have job descriptions and documented processes, but at a basic level, just the organization chart. And then number three, you need a financial plan or a budget. So in the library, there is a new process called budget creation. So if I just went to running the business, and you go here, general, and then you'll see it here in the library. If some of you have downloaded already just our budget process, this has replaced that. So it has everything that one had in it, but it's just, it has more now. And the only thing that was really in the old one, I think, was the template itself. So you can add that process. Here it is. Some people, this word budget can scare you sometimes because you just think, oh, it's this huge, heady exercise that, doesn't ever work out anyway. Give it another shot. So here's just a simple work plan and just some elements of creating a budget. Talk about sales, total costs, profit. Here talks about looking at your strategic plan, like we discussed, deciding on profit margins, coming up with your income, fixed costs, variable costs, one-time expenses for the year. So you can look through this budget work plan to kind of get the 1, 2, 3s of it. I think most people know how to do a budget. It's just taking those steps to do it. So we've got a couple different budget templates here. There's a few other kind of financial tools as well. There's Breakeven Analysis. So this, if you've never done something like this can be an interesting thing to kind of study more of the balance between this department and this department. Because at the point that they're in sync, you're at break-even, in a sense. It includes this as well, or the overhead expenses. But knowing what your break-even is, even at its simplest level, is an important thing to analyze. There's ratio analysis. So this can get very elaborate and complicated, but at a minimum it can do things like, assets versus liabilities, or gross profit is even a ratio. So all your variable costs minus your sales gives you your gross profit. Net profit, that's a phenomenal concept. So here, net profit is what these people are making, right? After everything else is said and done, everything else is paid for, what do the investors, the shareholders of the business get for their return on investment? Well, when the business is sold, they get something, but they should be getting something for just owning the business. But that requires there to be a net profit. There's different types of budget templates. There's this basic one here that I like. There's this version 2, which is a little bit more elaborate. But so here's like the basic budget template. So simply all you do is, if you don't have a budget now, I wouldn't even do it month to month. I would go quarter by quarter. So call this Q1, Q2, Q3, Q4, and do it for 1 year, and then maybe the next year. Maybe have a total for 2018 and just do the 4 quarters of this year. If you think about your revenue or your sales, think about it by profit center. If you sell more than one thing, identify your variable costs, identify your fixed costs. You can even take your P&L from your accounting system and cut and paste it into this. I think there's a work plan right here on how to do that if you have QuickBooks. The P&L, in a sense, is kind of like a budget structure. It should have sales. If you deal with variable costs, and most businesses do, it should have a variable cost section and fixed costs, and then net profit down here at the bottom. It's all just an algebra expression. If you have 3, then you can figure out the 4th. And you can flip it in any way that you want. You can force the net profit and then figure out what all these numbers have to be in order to create a net profit of that amount. How this is useful in regards to the organization strategy is if you have the org chart and you've got your expenses here, firstly, I can add all these salaries up and figure out exactly what my actual fixed expenses and variable costs need to be at the end of the 2 years, and I can put that, over here and list it out, and then I can backtrack it. So I can say, well, what do we need to do in Q4, 3, 2, 1 in order to grow to this level? You can then put in the hire dates. So if I'm going to hire an operations manager, that's going to go right into fixed cost salaries, and then that's going to push this number up here. What does sales need to be in order for me to be able to hire that person? And you can do that for every position. You can start to think of the balance of these 2 departments. When do I need to hire people here in order to fulfill the sales here? So any way that you do this, even if you just had 4 numbers on this spreadsheet, if you're not doing anything, it's going to be better than that, clearly. There's another, make this big again. Inside of the budgeting process here, there's another work plan on monitor and report. So this has some basic concepts about monitoring the budget. So this is where the budget falls apart 9 times out of 10. You may spend a couple hours or even a day that it takes to create a budget. Those of you who have a finance department or a bookkeeper and you don't have a budget, tell those people, this is build this for me. So building the budget is just the first step. It's the analysis of it that becomes essential to its success. So every month, or even quarterly, you don't even have to do it every month. Quarterly, ask for the numbers and then do a variance. What was it exactly compared to the budget? And then start asking yourself why. Why were expenses higher? Why did we make more money that month? Why? It's a good question to ask, even if you are successful. Well, why? Let's do more of that. Why were variable expenses too high this month? Even if you know the answer, being able to see the result of it through the numbers is empowering. This expectation here, falling short of budgeted figures, these are the things to think about. Don't give up. Even if you look at the first quarter and you were like, 50% wrong, readjust it. Go back and redo the budget, and then keep learning as you go. So this is the strategic work that's essential to the success of your business. And it doesn't have to be a big, long exercise. If you spent, anybody who doesn't do this and decides to do it, and you come back and tell me that this took, 20 hours in 1 week, then I will sit and help you figure out why, because it does not need to take that long. So review and monitor, that's essential. Another key thing to remember about, looking at the numbers, the org chart, all of that, is if you look at your budget and you see that the numbers are off or wrong, you didn't make the sales, expenses were too high, something was inefficient, something didn't work right, you don't quite get it, read into those numbers. If you see a material number that's way too high, read into that number until you figure out the cause. Or maybe you're down 5 customers from the last quarter. Read into those numbers and figure out what happened to those customers. And then identify process solutions. This is how TouchStone can be powerful to you, and how it can really help you change your business forever, rather than just putting out fires and waiting for them to come back up again. So look at those numbers. We call it reading the numbers. Get down to the bottom of what created that number, and then try to work on a process to fix it. A simple example would be if your sales, if you have lots of leads, but you don't have a lot of sales, then I would suggest that your sales conversions is the problem. Decide if that's the problem. Look and see what more could you do with the sales process in order to increase the conversions? And increasing things by small percentage points makes a huge difference. So think into the budget and to the issues that it's giving to you, and then decide on processes that can make it better. So just to recap, think about your strategic plan. Develop one if you don't have one. Again, we have a template for that in the Guiding the Business. Build out your organization chart as a picture of that business in the future. Think through the structure of these departments, the positions, the people. Marry it with the present situation. So think through people you have now, who's wearing what hat, who's doing what. Reorganize a bit if you need to. So take people who are spanning the organization and at least create a plan for how to move them out of that. Put in future hire dates for the positions you're going to hire in the future. Work on a budget which shows with numbers how this strategic plan or this organization chart is going to grow over the 2 years. Show it with the numbers, even round numbers. And remember, in the process library, there's tools for everything that I've mentioned. Budgeting is here, creating a budget, strategic plan is here. Next week, we are going to talk about job descriptions. So job descriptions, in my opinion, are the paramount, the best management tool ever. Like this is a tool that I couldn't live without, and that if a manager isn't using, they're really crippling themselves. This is what makes management successful in a business, this simple job description. And so next week I'm going to talk about technically how to build the job descriptions in TouchStone, but more importantly I'm going to talk about how to use this as a management tool. So any of you who are on the phone now, if you're the owner of the company and you have managers and you want them to come and ask questions and learn about how to use the TouchStone job descriptions as what I'm claiming to be the best management tool, then have them come next week. If you can't do that for whatever reason, remember that all these sessions are recorded and you can forward them the recording. But that will be next week.